All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and I've been going over a series of videos for MIT's App Inventor 2, and we're in the middle of building our 9th app. This is part of the Rankin Technical College Summer Academic Adventure Series. And we have now, and I still think the reset isn't working right, but I'll look at that in just a bit. But the start's working. But did you notice that if I hit the side like that, see how it just slides? It doesn't bounce. Well, when we reach the side like that, that's known as an edge. So we can do an edge reached. And it's the event handler call when the sprite reaches an edge of the screen. So that's what I want to do. And when you do this, and I'm sure I'm going to screw up the numbers, but do they have the numbers that are here? Okay, there's 8 directions. North, northeast, east. So let's grab all of these. One of the 8 directions. I want to grab all of those. And then I want to come back to here. In fact, we can just bring this up. All right. Notice that south is -1. So that's the bottom of the screen. Well, one thing I want to do is when I reach the edge of the screen like that, when I reach the bottom of the screen, all right, then I want the game to end because I've ended. I want to keep playing and keep scoring as long as I'm moving my paddle and I'm hitting the ball as it's coming down. All right? But once it gets past me, the game should end. And that's -1 because that's south. So what I want to do for that is I want to come in and for the ball, when edge reached, all right? So I have to, and I believe this is again under ball. I think there's a get edge in here, but I could be wrong. In fact, what we want to do is we want to put an if-else statement in here. So that's control. We want an, there we go. And we want an else in there. All right, so we have to get the edge. All right, we have to do a get edge. And if that edge is equal to -1, if the edge that we're trying to get is equal to -1, then we've reached the bottom of the screen. All right, so for in here, move this up and move this up. All right. And this is unfortunate, but I don't remember where get edge is, so I've got to look for that. It's dragged. We're going to use that in a minute, so, but not right now. So let me get that out of here for now. Oh boy. See, there's an edge reach, so I don't understand. I would have thought that get edge would have been in here. Well, I'm going to have to search for that, so I'm going to pause the video for a second. All right, sorry, brain fart. But if I go back here, there's edge, there's get edge. So if get edge, we want to put a math statement in here, which is going to be one of our equals. So if get edge is equal to -1, so in other words, if that's the case, we know we've reached the bottom of the screen. All right? So if that's the case, we want to set our ball enabled to false. For lack of better words, we have finished this particular game. All right? So otherwise, we want to call bounce. So we want to call ball1.bounce. And the edge should be get edge. Yeah, I know. That's fine. I believe that that's correct. There's a wrong number of arguments for bounce. So, again, I think at least you may or may not agree with this, but I believe that by writing comments, it makes it easier for me to understand what's going on also. So what I'm saying here is, if the bottom of the screen, I should say canvas, of the canvas has been reached, disable the ball. Otherwise, have the ball bounce. All right, now let's look. Let's go back to our emulator. You see how it's stopping now? And our reset's now working too. All right, so we've reached that edge. I'm at 8 minutes, and what is left is to do with what happens with when the ball basically collides. I think I'm missing something here. Oh, let's do one more thing. All right, and that is before we stop this lecture, because it's not even been 10 minutes. Let's what happens when we drag the paddle? All right, so there's our paddle, right there, image paddle, and there's the dragged. A lot of parameters in there, as you can see. So we go back to here, and remember, we've been looking at the ball, but if we go to image sprite, all right, now there should be a move to in here. And it's going to basically be the same thing. All right. But what we want to move it to is to where we currently are for X. We want to do a get current X and then a paddle Y. All right. So in other words, we just want to be able to move it for the paddle Y. We only want this to be able to move horizontally, not vertically. Otherwise, you know, when you think about it, it would be real easy to be able to cheat. If I can move this back and forth, but if I could move it up, I could just move it up to the top almost, or move it down to the very bottom. So we're not going to let you cheat, so to speak. All right, so what we're going to do is in here, we're going to say, we're going to call the paddle move to. All right, I'm going to have to take a couple of these. And we're gonna have to collapse them, otherwise we're just gonna run out of room. So let's move that into here. Okay, so we're gonna call our paddle move 2. And for the X, it'll be get current X. And for the Y, it'll just be paddle Y. All right, in other words, we're not letting it move. Now, what should happen now is bringing up this again. When we start the game, we should be able to move the paddle now. You can see we can. But it still isn't, notice what happens. It's going right through it. So what we have to do in our last lecture, what we will do is we have to say, okay, what's going to happen when it's called a collided with? What happens when the ball collides with the paddle? All right, it's not a lot of code. All right, there's not a lot of code, but basically there's a little bit of code that we want to enter into here. We want to be able to handle that. So I'll be back with that last lecture in just a couple minutes.